Impetus, episode 112. This episode starts off a little unusual, as we see Wazzy D in the backstage parking lot. The usually upbeat gangster is not in an upbeat mood. Storming through the parking lot with his gear, Wazzy walks with intensity through the arena and barges in the locker room. The door slams shut, reading, "Locker Room, Wazzy D and Barry the Bogan." The intro to Impetus begins. After the intro, we see Aaron Cutler at his commentary desk. Despite what we have just seen at the beginning of the show, he speaks of our new #1 contender to the Coast to Coast Championship. His name is Barry the Bogan, and he faces Warren Jaxon tonight for the gold. However, that match will take place in the midst of four huge tag team matches scheduled for the evening. Tonight, Chris Vortex and a mystery partner versus Empire. Who will Chris choose as his mystery partner, and can he even find one? Also, the Essentials take on the Killers of the Revolution. The two teams want revenge after last week's Vitality match. And a tag team title match takes place as El Fuego defend their titles against the Switchblades. After winning by disqualification last week, can the rookie team impress the champs? Also, Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso team up in the fourth tag team match of this evening against the Condemned Nation. The challenger and the champion team up. The tag team action starts instantly as Empire enter. Upset with their quick elimination last week from the Vitality match, Corey and Blake hope to pick up some W's. Enter Chris Vortex. Surprisingly, Vortex enters with cockiness. With a chilled attitude, he claims that he may not have had the best luck with tag team partners recently, seeing as no man at the back actually wants to deal with him. However, things are going to turn around for him, as he has a hand-picked member of the roster to be his partner. Chris walks around the ring and claims that he will not only benefit from teaming with his partner, but this partner will benefit from him. His new teammate is none other than Aaron Cutler. With Aaron raising his eyebrow, Chris claims that the commentator could use a new diet and perform a healthier lifestyle. What better way to get healthy results than by teaming with a vegan? With CJ off doing his own thing, Aaron can do the same. Aaron simply waves his hand saying no. He's not a wrestler and he will not compete. Chris asks again, this time a little more aggressively. He then pleads, then begs, needing a partner pretty desperately right now. Vortex continues his rant until being attacked by Empire on the outside and chucked into the ring to start the contest. Match 1, Empire versus Chris Vortex and Aaron Cutler, I guess? Aaron remains at the commentary desk, finding Vortex's expectation to be ridiculous. With Chris taking a beating in a 2-on-1 handicap match at this point, Aaron is seen multiple times looking at the audience members behind him, who rally him to join the fight. With the commentator trying his best to call the action, Vortex fights back and jumps for a tag, only for no one to be there, of course. Aaron remains at his desk. Empire continue their 2-on-1 assault as they talk trash to Aaron at the same time. They call him a fat loser who couldn't get out of his chair even if he tried. The longer the attack continues, so too does the trash talk. However, Empire get a little too cocky and lose focus, allowing Chris to fight back once again and knock both men down. Chris once again crawls for a non-existent tag, and again, there's no one there. Or is there? Having a change of heart, Aaron decides to get up and walk toward the ring. Realizing the commentary booth is empty, he walks back to his desk, realizing how dumb this all is. Looking at the crowd once more, Aaron changes his mind yet again and charges for the ring, climbing on the apron and begging for a tag. Empire holds Chris's legs to refrain him from tagging, but the vegan kicks them backwards, allowing Aaron to get the hot tag. Aaron lumps himself in the ring and punches Empire down multiple times. On fire, the commentator comedically screams, only to hold his hand in pain as he rarely throws strikes. Focusing too much on his hand, Aaron gets knocked down by Empire, allowing the team to hit the Thunder from Down Under with a huge struggle. They pin the Commentator for the win. Winners, Empire. As Empire exit after their victory, Vortex looks after his partner in the ring. Then, CJ is seen walking past the exiting Empire with care. Worried, CJ heads to the ring, but walks around it to the commentary desk, picking up the headset and deciding to take over the show. CJ regroups and moves on with the show despite his broadcast partner clearly in huge pain. Impetus ignores his clearly pained broadcast partner and decides to promote Impetus. Tonight, the Coast to Coast Championship match between Warren Jaxon and Barry the Bogan. Also, the reverse ritual. Will Skar actually banish Susan's soul? Impetus moves on with a backstage segment in Vipernip's office. With Vipernip choosing which sunglasses to wear, he gets interrupted by an upset Rebel. Greg asks if Vipernip is serious. Wondering what Greg is talking about, Vipernip is asked if Greg and Johnny are actually really going to be teaming up tonight. The president believes that it's an interesting match with Greg disputing instantly. He thinks it's a cut and paste cliche and refuses to tag with that creep. Vipernip stands his ground and tells Greg that after the last few weeks, this match is something that he believes many would like to see. Greg and Johnny have never teamed up, despite their history, and with the world title on the line at Hunt You Down, he thinks this will hype the match up. With Greg shaking his head in irritation, Vipernip tells his champion that he should probably prepare for the doubles action rather than speaking to him. Greg leaves with Vipernip, huffing and puffing, while assigning himself new sunglasses. Another backstage segment takes place instantly, this time in the hallway between Chris Vortex and Steven Dreadful. After losing his pathetic match, Chris is walking with pain and sadness, only to be confronted by his former partner, Steven Dreadful. Steven mocks Chris for his failures, all while his success builds a part of KOTR. This is why he is about to kick ass with Gary Federline and is glad that he dropped a sad loser like Chris, as he is nothing but an embarrassment. Chris arcs up, telling Steven that he may have his success now, but it won't be too long before Gary outshines, overshadows, and outperforms him in every perspective. Then, just like Steven views Chris to be the weak link of the quota, Gary will view Steven as the weak link of KOTR. Steven then shoves Chris with aggression. With Chris doing the same, they begin to brawl, only for security to get between them. With Steven escorted off, ready for his match, the security leave with a giant guard staying back, asking if everything's all good. Chris says he's fine and begins to exit, only to look up at the giant man and seems to have an idea. CJ is seen at the commentary desk by himself. He discredits Chris and calls him a big fat loser, just like Aaron Cutler. Steven Dreadful and Gary Federline are the weak link of nothing and will prove it right here, right now, as they face and defeat the Essentials. Enter Killers of the Revolution. CJ marks out as he witnesses his good friends enter for the first time with new music and new entrants. Enter the Essentials. CJ can't wait to see his team get revenge after last week's disgusting display of terrible sportsmanship by Josh and Freddie. A replay of last week's Vitality match is seen. The Essentials and KOTR look to be teaming up in the Vitality match, only for Gary to eliminate Freddie and Josh to eliminate Steven. Later, with Gary and Josh teetering on the apron, they get pulled off by those who they eliminated. With the two teams screwing each other over, they fought towards the back, leading to tonight's match. Match 2, Killers of the Revolution versus the Essentials. As CJ explains his business with Gary and Steven, an equal battle surprises and frustrates KOTR. Gaining control, Gary applies an abdominal stretch on Josh. Without the official seeing, Gary holds onto Steven's hand for extra leverage, making the pain worse and legal for the Essential. Powering through, Josh reverses and executes a hip toss on Gary. With Gary still connected to his partner, Steven is then sent flying over the top rope as well, crashing both KOTR members to the mat. From here, Josh makes a hot tag to Freddy. Freddy fires shots, sending Steven out of the ring only for Gary to drop him, halting his fire. Gary is pissed and orders Steven to grab a chair from the outside. With Steven doing so, the official goes to stop him. Meanwhile, Gary grabs a chair from the opposite side of the ring and smacks Freddy right in the face with it. Vacating the steel from the ring instantly, Gary acts as though nothing has been done. The referee gets back in the ring and counts to 3, oblivious to the dirty actions and cementing KOTR their first ever win. Winners, Killers of the Revolution. CJ goes crazy at the commentary desk, applauding his team. He then gets in the ring and celebrates with his unit. The show is silent without any commentators as we head into a commercial break. After the break, a commentator is seen at the commentary desk. One of the familiar interviewers is at the desk and welcomes all back to the show. For the third time this evening, we have a new commentator. Introducing himself as Ryan Walsh, he reminds us that Aaron Cutler is still nursing his injuries from earlier tonight, and CJ is, well, he's left with KOTR. Ryan hopes the show can hit a reset button as we move on with tonight's programming. Heading into a backstage scene once again in Vipernip's office, it involves Charlie Finch. Finch is already in there talking to the president and is mid-sentence, telling a confused Vipernip how big of a deal this night is. Finch tells Vipernip that tonight will host a ritual and implores Vipernip to place that segment on last. Vipernip rubs his head, trying to make sense of everything. In the middle of getting another new commentator, nursing the big fat one and thinking of how to punish the annoying one, he asks if he's got this straight. So, let me see if I get this right. Rochelle is Susan, but she's not because Skar has a sister that he killed and performed a ritual to resurrect her soul into Rochelle's body, and now Finch wants Skar to reverse the ritual so that Rochelle's soul, which is trapped in Susan's corpse, can return to Susan's corpse, allowing Rochelle's soul to return to Rochelle's body, which is being controlled by Susan? Yep, that's about it. Vipernip scratches his head and thinks that all seems a little too complicated. Maybe it's best that they put this in the mid-card where nobody will ever remember it. Finch is now desperate, claiming that this is big. Nothing like this has ever been done before. With Vipernip still unsure, Finch changes his mind by claiming that somebody will come back from the dead tonight. How is that not a main event segment? Vipernip submits, allowing the segment to go on last. He has no idea how Finch is going to make this all happen, and to be fair, he doesn't even want to know. All he knows is Skar lost the match last week, and if this is what he has to do, then so be it. Finch rubs his hands with excitement. He assures Vipernip that he and his immunity know how to get what they want. Don't worry about that. He exits, leaving Vipernip to sigh. Only in wrestling. Remember the locker room segment with Wazzy D earlier tonight opening the show? Well, Wazzy is seen bursting out of the same locker room door with rage. Slamming the door behind him, he pushes the cameraman out of his way and walks back toward the parking lot. Frustrated, he gets in his car and slams the door, driving off with fury. With our new commentator, Ryan Walsh, wondering what's going on in the mind of Wazzy D, enter Daria. Ready for a match against her former friend, Jacinta, Daria prepares for another battle with her forever rival. However, an unexpected entrance takes place. Enter Akira. Akira enters with colourful, casual clothes. She and Daria glare at one another as she sits at the commentary desk, looking on at her future opponent. Enter Jacinta. With excessive makeup, Jacinta enters with huge confidence, still believing herself to be a megastar. Match 3, Daria versus Jacinta. During the matchup, Akira is asked about her feelings at the commentary desk after last week's interaction with Daria. Akira claims that she is simply standing up for what she believes in and respects Daria for doing the same. However, she makes it clear that she believes the points she made last week are valid. Daria is a prime example of the negative perception that women's wrestling still has to this day. Akira doesn't want to kill her by any means. She respects Daria, but would like to embody a new meaning to the Women's Championship. Daria bests Jacinta in multiple parts of the match, all with Jacinta looking to the stage for a sign of aid. However, nothing happens. This allows Daria to finish her former friend off with the Harlem Hangover. Winner, Daria. With Daria victorious, Jacinta tries to run back to the ring for an attack, only for the champion to see it coming, keeping her former friend out of the ring in fear. Trying to regain any sort of power, Jacinta snatches the women's title from the timekeeper area, refusing to hand it over to Daria or the official. However, Akira exits the commentary desk and strikes down Jacinta. With the title dropped, Akira picks it up and stares at the gold. She looks at the champion from the outside and simply places the title in the ring, allowing Daria to pick it up by herself. Akira leaves, slightly adjusting her gear, all with Daria looking on in irritation, picking her title up from the mat. Still to come, the Coast to Coast title is on the line as Warren Jaxon defends the gold against Barry the Bogan, but the question remains, why did Wazzy D leave the arena? Also, a tag team championship match is scheduled for this evening as El Fuego defend against the Switchblades, and after their winning disqualification last week, can the rookie team impress the champions? And the reverse ritual will go on last. Will Skar actually banish Susan's soul? We then head into a couple of replays over the last few weeks. A replay from 2 weeks ago is shown, with Johnny Fabuloso approaching Greg Williams in his locker room, asking if the Rebel could tan his back. Then, a replay of last week is seen. Defeating Jimmy Sparrow, Greg had his hand raised by Johnny Fabuloso. With Greg irritated, he shoved Johnny to the floor and exited with anger, all with the number one contender flicking his legs like a little schoolgirl while laying on his stomach. Enter Johnny Fabuloso. The Fabulous One enters with a cute little smile, proud of the mind games that he's been playing with Greg. He reaches the bottom of the ramp and jumps for joy as his partner enters. Enter Greg Williams. Greg walks slowly to the ring, gritting his teeth, not wanting to side with his annoying partner. Enter the Condemnation, Mark Emille and Jarvis Banks. Match 4, Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso versus the Condemnation. The bell rings with all 4 men in the ring, ready to separate. With Johnny excited to tag with his partner, Greg wants him out of the ring, ridding himself of Johnny's annoyance. However, just as Johnny steps toward the ropes, he kicks Greg in the balls. With Mark and Jarvis stood in silence, the official tries to halt Johnny's rain of punches to Greg's face. The official finally pushes Johnny off the champion, only for Johnny to hit the no alibi on his partner. Johnny stands in the corner, allowing the Condemnation to cover for the win. The quick match allows the winners of Mark Emille and Jarvis Banks. Mark Emille and Jarvis Banks exit in confusion, as well as the official, as he is demanded to leave by Johnny. Johnny then grabs the microphone and falls to his knees, speaking to a pained and recovering Greg. Johnny asks Greg if this is all familiar. The backstage interactions, the in-ring involvement, the tag match that never was. After dealing with Jimmy Sparrow, Johnny realized that Greg has another ghost from his past that he needs to be haunted with. He asks the stirring champion if he remembers the tournament. Johnny then kicks the champion in the face, keeping him down. Johnny reminds Greg of what he used to be, Greg Gordo, the curious little failure. Greg was destined to be partners with Johnny until he decided to change his fate and become the selfish megastar known as the World Impetus Champion, Greg Williams. The night of the Truth Bomb was not only the rise of Greg's career, but the diminishing of Johnny's, and he has never forgiven Greg for it. Greg belittled him, embarrassed him, and spat in his face, and from there, Greg defeated Ricky Matthews, Dave Falcon Corruption, even Sam Pullen, the entire Adrenaline Army winning the world title twice, leaving poor Johnny Fabuloso to flounder in this very corner of the ring, confused, humiliated, and without direction. With Greg smacking the mic out of Johnny's hand, Johnny gets irate and frantically punches the Rebel yet again. Johnny tells Greg that he would be nothing without their partnership, nothing without the tag team tournament, nothing without Johnny Fabuloso. Well, now it's his turn. Now Johnny gets what he wants. Johnny will no longer allow Greg Williams to absorb the success that Johnny simply handed to him. Now he takes it all for himself, just like Greg did. He will take the world title, not just for fame and fortune, not just for the publicity and the photo shoots, but for irony. Greg Williams won the title because of Johnny Fabuloso, and now, come hunt you down, will lose the title because of Johnny Fabuloso. Johnny lays next to Greg after placing the mic on the stomach of the Rebel. Just like last week, Johnny lays on his stomach, flicking his legs in the air like a schoolgirl, mocking the recovering champion. Impetus then heads into a commercial break. After the fabulous scenes that have just occurred, we then see a backstage interview in the interview area with the president, Vipernip. The audience is told that Vipernip has some breaking news he'd like to share relating to next week's episode of Impetus. Vipernip claims that after the stunt that Johnny Fabuloso just pulled, as daring as it may be, it created huge interest for the world title match at Hunt You Down. As a result, the Impetus audience are going to get that match early. With a revolutionary idea, Vipernip states that next week, Johnny Fabuloso will compete for Greg Williams' World Impetus Championship. However, the pay-per-view match hasn't been replaced, as whoever loses next week will have an instant rematch at the originally scheduled Hunt You Down event. The pay-per-view is then advertised, with the World Impetus Championship match highlighted between Greg Williams and Johnny Fabuloso. The question is, will Greg be the champion, or will it be Johnny Fabuloso next week? Because in 7 days, next episode of Impetus will host another championship match. Greg Williams will defend his title against Johnny Fabuloso, who will head into the pay-per-view wearing the gold. The tag team action then continues as enter the Switchblades. Leo and Kai enter 1 week after their disqualification win over the tag team champions. Ryan Walsh explains how. A replay from last week's match between the Switchblades and El Fuego is shown. With Jillian Day hoping to make the Switchblades lose in order to become their manager, she attempted to cost them the match. With El Fuego about to win due to Jillian's shenanigans, they decided to shove the official down, granting a disqualification win to the rookies. Enter El Fuego. As the tag team champs enter, Ryan explains El Fuego's acceptance on putting the titles on the line. Realizing a disqualification wasn't exactly the best of wins for the rookies, they will gladly reward them with a title shot to show no hard feelings. Match 5, Tag Team Championship match. El Fuego versus the Switchblades. After another high-flying contest between the two tag teams, it leads Listio to hit his Phoenix Splash for the win. Winners, El Fuego. As El Fuego celebrate their title retention, they begin to show the Switchblades respect until they get ambushed by the appearance of Matar. Returning since their first and only match at episode 92, the El Fuego lookalikes beat down the champions. Cinxia is picked up and grabbed with a full Nelson by one of the attackers. Being thrown and rotated to the side, the other Matar member connects with a flatliner. Matar return with dominance with El Fuego damaged. As the villainous lookalikes exit, Ryan Walsh reminds us of what is still to come for tonight. The reverse ritual takes place where Skar will apparently vanquish the soul of his own sister. However, up next, the Coast to Coast title is on the line. Warren Jaxon versus Barry the Bogan. Hoping to send us to the commercial break, we remain on air as we then see a backstage segment outside Barry the Bogan's locker room. Barry is seen charging out of his locker room with anger, much like Wazzy D from earlier. Clearly, some sort of drama has broken loose as we head into the commercial break. During the commercial break, apparently Barry the Bogan exited the arena. Replay from moments ago are shown. Ryan welcomes us back with shocking scenes as Barry the Bogan, moments away from competing for the Coast to Coast title, has apparently left the arena in his car, much like his partner did earlier. What have Barry and Wazzy been talking about in order for them both to leave so abruptly? The chaos of Impetus continues in a backstage segment between the Rebel and the President. Vipernip is stressed on his phone as he has just been told about Barry's walkout. Struggling with what to do, he then gets confronted by Greg. The Rebel complains as he walks in, asking why he's defending his title against Johnny next week after all he's done. Vipernip asks Greg to do this another time, only for Greg to demand priority. After all, he is the world champion. With Vipernip rolling his eyes, Greg claims that he's got no problem taking anyone on for his title, but doesn't appreciate giving Johnny an extra, unnecessary, and undeserved challenge for the title. He already has his shot at Hunt You Down. He sees no reason why he should be competing 2 times. Vipernip raises his eyebrows and asks, "What makes you think he'll be challenging twice?" Trying to put doubt in the champion's mind. Refusing the doubt, Greg wants it to be known that Johnny has been a slippery snake over the last few weeks, and he doesn't like that weirdo being given such opportunities. Whoa. According to Greg, Johnny is not only a weirdo, but, as stated earlier tonight, a creep. Is Greg trying to tell us something? Is Greg trying to say that he has an issue with Johnny Fabuloso's personality? Greg rolls his eyes and claims that he just doesn't like the guy, okay? Vipernip is happy to hear it. If there is nothing but bad blood between them, then Impetus will have gained 2 great title matches, both next week and at Hunt You Down, whoever the champion may be. With Greg irritated, Vipernip asks him to leave as he has an Aussie to chase after. With Barry the Bogan's location still questioned by everybody in Impetus, the announcer is then seen in the ring. Despite the lack of challenger, the announcer does their job by announcing the following contest to be for the Coast to Coast Championship. After a long pause, it becomes clear that Barry the Bogan has not returned to the arena, leaving us without a challenger. After a moment of silence, enter Warren Jaxon. The champion enters with confusion as he has yet to hear his opponent's music, wondering why he's entering first. After waiting for Barry the Bogan, Warren decides to speak. He doesn't know exactly what's going on here, but what he does know is that he and the audience came here tonight for a Coast to Coast Championship match. If Barry the Bogan ain't gonna rock up to the biggest match of his life, then he'll gladly give someone else the shot. Offering an open challenge, Warren puts his title on the line. Enter Dylan Dark. The Emperor accepts the challenge, prepared to gain a victory much like his children did earlier tonight. Match 6. Coast to Coast Championship, Warren Jaxon versus Dylan Dark. Winner, Warren Jaxon. After the uncertainty of the Coast to Coast Championship, more uncertainty is placed with Skar. The show then sees a replay from episode 80, highlighting the soul of Susan being placed into the vessel of Rochelle. We then see Skar in the backstage hallway, only panicking through it, rushing to find his apparently lost sister. The monster is enraged as nobody seems to know the location of Susan. Up next, the reverse ritual. Will Susan even make it to her own ritual? Before the reverse ritual takes place after the commercial break, next week's episode of Impetus is advertised. El Fuego take on Matar. Listio and Cinxia have demanded a match with their returning lookalikes. Also, the World Impetus title is on the line before Hunt You Down as Greg Williams, the champion, defends against the challenger Johnny Fabuloso. The reverse ritual is ready to take place. Enter Immunity. With Finch leading his team, Immunity enter, forcing Susan out with them while she wears shackles on her hands and feet. The sister has been kidnapped and handcuffed by Immunity. Bobby and Jerry enter with a chair in hand, with Finch leading them and Angel looking nice. Furious with the faction's kidnapping actions, Susan does as she is told, all with a bruised eye, indicating the beatdown she has obviously received in order to be in this position. Finch speaks to Skar, claiming that his weakness of Susan will be destroyed, therefore granting him the power of desperation, saving him from his sickness, before continuing, enter Skar. The chaotic creature bursts down the ramp looking for chaos, only to be halted by a pleading Finch, demanding that he not take another step. Jerry and Bobby threaten the monster with their steel chairs as he watches from the outside. Meanwhile, Angel plants the sister on the mat. With Susan forced onto her back, all are at a standstill. The motionless scene allows Charlie to grin as he stares at the helpless Skar. Finch slowly pulls out a bolt cutter and places the head of it over Susan's nose, threatening to cut it open. Finch warns Skar not to take any closer steps and instead simply listen. Otherwise, Susan will receive far more than a simple black eye. With both siblings in fear, Finch claims that Immunity are not bad people. They just want to help. Finch doesn't want Skar to be like he once was. He doesn't want him to fall weaker and weaker due to a woman. Finch was lucky he was strong enough to break free from this weakness and claims that Skar may be saved if all returns back to normal, the way it should be. With Rochelle's soul returned and Susan's trapped forever. Finch then looks at the frightened Susan and calmly claims that it's been a while since he gazed into these eyes. Disregard Impulse 3 when he booted Susan's head off. It's been a long time since he got lost in Rochelle's eyes. With the Immunity members confused, Finch seems to snap out of his quick trance and claims that he will never fall for that weakness ever again, and neither will Skar. Skar is in sadness, almost accepting what he must do. Finch sympathizes with him, asking if he wants his life back, his power back. Skar nods his head in sadness as he approaches the steps. Finch tells his armed men to put down their weapons and let Skar in the ring. The monster gets inside while staring at Finch with sorrow. Finch claims that Skar can be powerful once again. All he needs to do is read from this. He then pulls out the book in which holds the ritual. With Susan struggling, Finch tells Skar to read the text and make everybody's lives go back to normal, the way it should be. Offered the book, Skar holds it for a while. He breathes in and destroys Immunity. Knocking Finch down, Skar power slams Bobby and Jerry, only for Angel to jump on Skar's back, hoping to stop him. However, the monster shifts her around his body, grabbing her in a powerbomb position. Raising the princess up in the air, the move is stopped as Bobby and Jerry attack with their steel chairs. They beat Skar down, hoping to hit the cure, only for Finch to forbid them from doing so. He tells his teammates that Skar needs to remain conscious, otherwise the ritual cannot take place. Bobby and Jerry are ordered to hold Skar down, all while Angel does the same to Susan. Finch then gets in Skar's face, telling the monster that he will read the script. He then rolls to the outside and searches under the ring. Finch pulls out a flame torch and a branding iron. He then gets back in the ring and heats up the branding iron, telling Skar that he will do anything to have Rochelle back. Realizing the judgment on Immunity's faces, Finch then says that, of course, it is all to rid Skar of his weakness. With Immunity convinced, Finch monologues more until the branding iron is red hot. With the book forced in Skar's face, Finch gets closer with the iron, telling Skar that he has gone through torture to get his sister back. It doesn't have to be the same way, to get rid of her. Skar squirms as Finch threatens the hot iron, telling the monster to read it. Read it! Skar refuses, only to be poked in the arm by the smouldering hot metal. Screeching in pain, Skar tries to break free from Immunity's clutches, but fails. Finch yells at the scarred Skar, ordering him to read from the damn book. With Skar screaming more and more, he refuses to sacrifice his sister. Finch then holds Scar's head to the side, threatening to burn the monster's head. The branding iron gets closer and closer and closer until the lights go out. The lights return to see Dominick Silver return to life. Immunity stand in shock as if they've seen a ghost. Well, they have indeed seen a ghost. Trying to finish their ritual, Immunity charge after Dominick, only to be flattened by his offense. Finch is delivered a package pile driver, with Dominick standing back up, looking instantly at the pained Skar and fearful Susan. Slowly, he approaches the sister and unlocks her from the cuffs. In shock and fear, Susan crawls to the corner, threatened by Dominick's return, only for her former boyfriend and stalker to be merciful. Silver then looks at the shocked Skar, who remains seated on the opposite side of the ring. He then approaches the monster and helps him to his feet. As Immunity exit in pain and anger, Dominick has saved the siblings. Impetus ends with the most confusing scene, perhaps, of all time.